Welcome back to the Beyond Woman Conversation Podcast. I'm Jacqueline Johnson, and today's episode is one I've been sitting with for a while. We're talking about gatekeeping. And before you mentally check out or get defensive, let me say this up front. I know a lot of us need to hear this conversation. It's not about blame, but it's about awareness. It's about us taking responsibility, and it is about us growing. Because here's what I've noticed. Both in research and in real life, women are working harder than ever. They're showing up more qualified than ever. Yet many still feel stalled, not because they lack talent, but because the access, it still isn't equal. And sometimes, quietly, access is being restricted by people who look just like us. So why does this matter? The science and the reality of it all is that global and regional studies consistently show that women are not lacking ability. Women instead are outperforming men academically in many regions, including the Caribbean. Women are highly represented in professional and managerial roles, and yet, when you look at executive leadership, board positions, business ownership, and high-income decision-making roles, women are still significantly underrepresented. Research from institutions like the World Bank and Harvard-affiliated studies show that networks, now hear me clear, networks, not competence, are often the deciding factor in advancement. So who vouches for you? Who shares information with you? Who opens the doors when you're not in the room? This is where gatekeeping becomes more than a buzzword. It becomes a structural issue. And for Caribbean women, where industries are small, relationships are tight, and opportunities circulate informally, gatekeeping has an even greater impact. Now let's talk honestly, and let's talk without judgment. Most women don't gatekeep because they're malicious. They gatekeep because they were taught survival, not sustainability. Many of us came up in systems that told us there's only room for one. You have to protect your position. You cannot afford to share too much. You know, that scarcity mindset. So when a woman finally gets access to leadership, to influence, to visibility, guess what? She tightens her grip, unfortunately. And like I said, it's not because she's selfish, but more so it is done out of fear. Fear of being replaced, afraid of being overlooked again, and afraid of losing the very thing that she fought so hard to gain. But guess what? The sad truth is that fear-based leadership, it never builds legacy. It only builds isolation. Think about it. So let's talk a little bit about what gatekeeping really looks like in the real world. You see, gatekeeping isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it looks like not forwarding an opportunity, withholding the context of perhaps a conversation, withholding insider knowledge, mentoring quietly but never advocating publicly, creating women's spaces that feel empowering, but they aren't accessible really. Sometimes it's not what we do, it's what we don't do. And when women experience that repeatedly, something shifts internally. Her confidence gets eroded, trust is weakened, and community becomes performative. And that's how talented women end up burning out, shrinking themselves, or leaving industries entirely. Do you see where I'm heading with this? I want you to pause with me for a moment. Think about the last opportunity you had access to, information you knew about, a door you could have opened. Did you share it, or did you hesitate? Not to shame yourself, but this is for you to become aware. It was just recently I had a conversation with a woman who faced the same challenge in an industry that operates on a scarcity mindset. And I had to share with that woman that the world is such a big place. There are opportunities that abounds, and that she should never allow an industry, an individual to cause her to shrink. But instead, she should take hold of all that is available outside of herself, outside of her industry, so as to not get into a place where she begins to question herself, she begins to question her worth, she begins to question, is it worth it at all? But here's the good news. Gatekeeping is a learned behavior. And if you are self-aware, any learned behavior that does not bode well for others and for yourself can be unlearned. There's a different model that is emerging, and one that doesn't rely on scarcity. It doesn't rely on competition. It doesn't rely on silent control. And it starts with community that understands power differently. So let's talk about the community that does not gatekeep. Once again, I want to make this very clear. We are not shaming anybody. We're not shaming any woman. What is happening right here is that we are highlighting that there is a different way. Because the truth is, there really is a growing counterculture of women who don't gatekeep, but they open the gate. These women understand something powerful, that success doesn't disappear when it's shared, but instead it multiplies. So let's dig a little bit deeper into what this community looks like. And one of the things is that there is structure over vibes. And what I mean is, take for example, there is intentional mentorship hubs in this community. So let's start with mentorship, but not the casual mentorship that says message me anytime, that kind that goes nowhere. But we're talking about intentional mentorship, structured mentorship that has clear time frames, it has defined goals, it has open access to information and introductions. These are spaces where women don't just talk about success, but they map it out together. We're talking about women-led circles where senior women commit to reviewing CVs and proposals and business plans. They help with making direct introductions. They explain systems that aren't obvious, like how does one get hired? What are funding channels, funding paths for my business? They talk about the politics of leadership. And what makes these hubs powerful is that knowledge stops being a privilege and it becomes a shared resource. Isn't that a great thing? The other thing we could look at is collaborative networks, the one that doesn't have the initiation rights. There's access without this kind of initiation. Then, and if you've ever been part of one, you know the difference immediately, that these aren't the cliques. They're not built on who knows who or how long you've been around, but they're built on contribution. So could use examples such as woman entrepreneur collectives, like group of entrepreneurs coming together and, brainstorming and just being collaborative. You help me, I help you kind of thing, We're talking about regional groups, regional women groups. We're talking about professional networks that prioritize referrals, visibility, and support. And what these networks prove is pretty simple, that when access is shared, it stops being scarce. And these spaces work because they don't make women audition for belonging. You don't have to perform. You don't have to prove your worth before someone helps you. Everyone is willing and able to help. And then we move on to sponsorship, the piece that we often miss, the piece that actually moves the needle. Because mentorship is advice and it's all well and good, but sponsorship Sponsorship take things to a different level because sponsorship is advocacy. And what that looks like is when women recommend other women for roles that she's not in the room for, or they're not in the room for, sorry. It looks like a woman saying another woman's name when decisions are being made. Think about so-and-so. I think she would be perfectly suited for this role. It looks like using your influence to open doors that another woman will never be able to open by herself. But here's the thing. Sponsorship requires courage because what you're really doing is that you're attaching your reputation to someone else's potential. And why does this matter? It matters because women don't need, they don't need just the encouragement, but they need other women who they know are championing their cause. This is how women help other women get ahead. Not by cheering quietly, but by speaking loudly on each other's behalf. And these communities work because they are not feel-good initiatives, but they are systems. And they work because the access is intentional, power is redistributed, and success is collective rather than competitive. This is how glass ceilings crack. Not by one woman breaking through, that is all well and good. But when that one woman breaks through, she closes the door behind her. But glass ceilings are cracked when an entire group pushes upward together. So when we see what's possible in communities that don't gatekeep, the real question becomes, what happens when we choose to let go of control and embrace collective growth? Here's another uncomfortable part that we don't say enough. Gatekeeping can feel like power in the moment. It can feel like control. It can feel like protection. But guess what? Over time, what it does is that it shrinks us. It limits our impact, and it quietly keeps us exactly where we are. But when access is shared instead of protected, growth doesn't just happen, it speeds up. Think about it. One woman rises alone. That's inspiring, commendable, yeah. But 10 women rising together. Now you're shifting culture, you're shifting industries, and you're shifting norms. And in real life, this looks like women recommending each other for contracts, media features, speaking engagements, leadership roles, instead of competing for the same one seat. And this matters so much for us as Caribbean women because our markets are small, our industries are tight, and when one woman opens a door, it doesn't weaken her, but it strengthens the entire ecosystem. And let's be honest, our mental health improves because gatekeeping causes isolation, and isolation is exhausting. Trying to succeed alone is emotionally draining. Gatekeeping also breeds comparison, it breeds suspicion, it causes us to resent others, and it is burnout masked as independence. But collaboration, on the other hand, normalizes struggle. And we're talking about the mental health aspect of gatekeeping. Collaboration reminds us that we're not failing, we're growing. It normalizes the struggle. Women who share resources and experiences don't internalize every setback as a personal flaw. They process challenges collectively and they recover faster. There is peace in knowing you don't have to figure everything out by yourself. Another thing happens in the beautiful space of when we let go of gatekeeping, and it is that we talked a little bit about it just now, but economic prosperity increases, right? The wealth stops bottling at the top because gatekeeping keeps money circulating among the same few people. It closes the network, and it simply means that the same women get the contracts, the same women voices get visibility and get heard, and the same pockets get filled. But when women intentionally share access, when we share our referrals, our clients, opportunities, the money moves differently. It spreads, it multiplies, it creates sustainability. And this is especially critical in Caribbean economics, where women-led businesses already face limited funding and limited exposure and institutional support. So at the end of the day, shared doors don't dilute success, they redistribute opportunity. So it is a collective win-win, right? You have economic prosperity. And like I said, the wealth is redistributed among many rather than just a few at the top. Each individual in the collective gets to win and to advance. So imagine this for a second. Instead of celebrating one woman making it, we are watching entire circles move forward together. That's not feel-good language. That is what economists call the multiplier effect. When one gain creates several more. And what that does is that when one woman gets the visibility, she pulls others into the spotlight. When one woman gains influence, she changes who gets access next. When one woman learns the system, she teaches it to others. And that's how we build legacies, not by guarding success, but by multiplying it. You see, real power isn't holding the key. It is changing who gets the key in the first place. And when women stop gatekeeping, something radical happens. Success stops being rare. Leadership is no longer a lonely journey. And the community on a whole stops being performative. So if we agree that gatekeeping costs us more than it protects us, the next question becomes, what does it actually look like to build something better? And let me tell you about some practical steps that we can take to build a supportive, non-gating community. So we're moving out of the theory for a moment because talking about gatekeeping without giving people a way out just turns into another think piece, right? So we really want to talk about what steps we can take to build a supportive community. So we can start with what we call a monthly peer share. This is not a space where women come to pick apart each other's ideas, posture, tone, or the presentation, because we have enough of that already. But what peer share is a structured, intentional exchange. Everyone comes prepared with one opportunity they have seen, one resource they might have used, or a connection that they can make. So instead of, let me tell you why that won't work, it becomes, here's who you should talk to. Here's a platform that helped me. Here's a mistake I made, so you don't have to. The real world impact of this is that in Caribbean spaces, access is often informal. Who you know matters. But in peer share, it democratizes the access. So instead of letting it stay locked with a few insiders, many persons get a chance to participate. The other thing we can look at is build gate open agreements then. Let's say it out loud, right? Here is where a lot of women get uncomfortable because your accountability shows up. And if you're building a woman's group or network or mentorship circle, whatever it is, say what the expectations are out loud. So a simple gate open agreement might say, as a member of this community, I commit to referring at least one opportunity, one collaboration, or a resource every quarter. So that could be a job posting, a client lead, a speaking opportunity, or even just a name. But what matters is this: no one gets to just consume in the community. Everyone has to participate. Everyone has to contribute. Because gatekeeping thrives where expectations are vague, and when contribution is normalized, hoarding becomes unacceptable. The other thing that we can look at is to sponsor at least one woman and do it publicly. So I think I mentioned this before, that mentorship without sponsorship is incomplete. So mentorship is something that happens in private, but when you sponsor a woman, it happens in rooms that she's not in. So it looks like saying a woman's name when decisions are being made. I think we alluded to that already. Recommending her before she asks you to recommend her. Using your credibility to vouch for her. And yes, that means on LinkedIn and Facebook and all of these platforms. In meetings, in WhatsApp groups, in boardrooms, in conversations where her absence would normally make her invisible. And if you've climbed any ladder, guess what? Someone spoke your name somewhere, so just pay that forward. The other thing is that we can teach what we know. Even, or let me say, especially if you have learned it the hard way. One of the most damaging forms of gatekeeping is information hoarding, acting like knowledge is power when it stays exclusive. So ask yourself, what systems have you figured out? What mistakes did you survive? What shortcuts did you earn the hard way? Was it that email template? Guess what? Share it. Was it that lesson you learned from the contract you signed? Guess what? Explain it. Was that pricing mistake you made? Guess what? Teach it. Because here's the mindset shift. Your value is not reduced when others learn what you know, but instead it's amplified when you become a source, not a competitor. And the bigger picture is that when women stop gatekeeping, progress speeds up, confidence multiplies, isolation dies. We've said it before. We're just repeating it for emphasis. So high achieving women really don't need to be lone wolves. We definitely need ecosystems, and ecosystems can only thrive when nutrients such as access, information, opportunity are all shared. The question isn't whether gatekeeping exists. The real question is, what kind of woman are you choosing to be inside this ecosystem? A guard at the door or someone who builds more doors? I want to say, if this episode made you uncomfortable, then good for you, because that's where growth usually starts. As I said in the beginning, gatekeeping isn't always loud. Oftentimes it's quiet, and it shows up in what we don't share, who we don't recommend, and the silence we keep when we could speak someone's name. And here's the part I really want us all to sit with. Every woman listening to this is a gatekeeper somewhere. At work, in business, in community, online, offline. And the question isn't whether you hold access, it's what you're doing with the access that you hold. Are you guarding opportunities out of fear, or are you opening doors out of purpose? Because the future of women, especially Caribbean women, won't be built by lone success stories. It will be built by women who understand that legacy creation is collective. We don't need more women breaking ceilings only to stand alone at the top. We need women who turn around, reach back, and pull others forward. So this week, do something practical. Speak a woman's name in a room she's not in. Share an opportunity you could have kept to yourself. Make an introduction that costs you nothing but could change everything for someone else. And that's how our culture will shift, and that's how power moves. That's how we build the Beyond Woman. So if this conversation resonated, share this episode with the woman you believe in. And until next time, keep choosing collaboration over competition and community over control. I'm Jacqueline Johnson, and this is the Beyond Woman Conversations Podcast. Take care. That brings us to the end of this episode of the Beyond Woman Podcast. I hope you're leaving feeling inspired and ready to take action. Remember, you are capable of so much more than you think. Keep pushing those boundaries, keep learning, and keep believing in your limitless potential. We want to stay connected with you, so be sure to follow us on social media at The Beyond Woman Magazine for daily inspiration and behind-the-scenes content, and to join our growing community of empowered women. Visit us at www.thebeyondwomanmag.com and www.thebeyondwoman.com, where you will find more resources and articles to support you in your journey. Sign up for our newsletters and be the first to know about our exclusive events and for more opportunities to connect. To all my Caribbean sisters, let's lift each other up. Share this episode with the women in your life who need to hear this message, and let's continue to build this powerful network together. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a review on this app. Your support helps us to reach more women. Thank you for being part of the Beyond Woman movement. Keep shining, keep growing, and keep living your extraordinary life.